They tell of an old law in the highlands of Uldoria, where the twin-peaked Ashen Crag Mountains cast their long shadow over a hamlet called Grayveil Hollow. There, for as long as any song mistress could remember, the following decree stood carved upon the rune stone in the market square. When a soul completes 60 winters, let him be carried upon the shoulders of kin, through pine and snow, across stone bridge and frozen fall, until the black pines of Nightveil Gorge swallow the last echo of his name. The elders claimed it mercy. An aged body could no longer swing a scythe or haul a haywain. It consumed more than it gave. Better to offer it back to the mountain gods before hunger's bite grew sharp. Outwardly, Grayveil Hollow looked peaceful. Dawn spilled like molten gold across terraced barley fields. Women in indigo shawls sang over butter churns. Children clattered wooden swords on the flagstones. And at twilight, every cottage kindled a blue witch lamp. Yet beneath that calm lurked a silent dread, the tally of winters in every hearth. In this hamlet lived a crofter named Eirik of Holt, a man whose hands were as cracked as the plough handles he carved. 60 harvests he had gifted to the Finn soil, sharing every last barley grain with neighbors whose own children cried in the night. When the frost-painted maples dropped their leaves, so too did the clerks of Lord Caspian of Torun Hall drop their quills. Eirik's name now headed the winter roll. The decree rang through the lanes before the first rooster crowed. Eirik Holt has reached the age of reckoning. Let the bearers assemble at moonrise. Voices faltered, kettles cooled, no eye met another. To refuse meant chains for your kin and scorching of your roof beams. Only one heart dared to thunder. Leif, Eirik's youngest son, barely 20 summers old, a boy whose arms were still more promise than power. Leif knew the law, knew the Lord's crossbowmen upon the palisade, yet the thought of leaving his father to wolves and darkness twisted his stomach like a wet rag. When the horn sounded, Leif stepped forward. "I will carry," he said, voice cracking like spring ice. The crowd parted, half in pity, half in fear. He wrapped his father in the red wool cloak that had crossed every threshing floor of their lives, hoisted the slight old man upon his back, and began the long ascent toward Nightveil Gorge. The path wound past frozen cataracts, through colonnades of pine so tall their tops vanished in cloud. Ravens wheeled overhead. Wind carried the scent of moss and distant snow leopard musk. Each footfall felt to Leif like a hammer driving a nail of grief deeper into his breast. Eirik, sensing the tremor in those young shoulders, whispered, "Do not break, my boy. Customs are mountains, older and colder than any man. You have already given me more years of love than the gods first allotted. Let the gorge take only my shadow. My soul travels with you." Leif's tears froze upon his cheeks. "Father, you lifted me before I could walk. You starved so I might sup. How does loyalty become a crime the moment your beard turns white? My heart will not sign this sentence." The path narrowed. Ahead, the black mouth of Nightveil Gorge gaped, rhymed with hoarfrost, exhaling a wind that sounded like the mountain itself mourning. A smile touched the old man's frost-capped lips. "Dearest boy, the world's greatest truth is this: time stops for no one. My hourglass is empty. But remember, when trials crowd you, when men test you, let patience and wit become your blade and shield." Leif's arms tightened under his father's weight. Higher they climbed, until the stars themselves seemed to peer over the crags. They passed beneath ancient pines whose trunks were scarred with runic notches, each a name, each a life abandoned to the gorge. Leif's heart quailed. Did every son weep as I do? Did they all bow to the law in silence? The wind rose. Night spilled its ink. Only the crunch of Leif's boots and Eirik's shallow breaths disturbed the hush. At last they reached the lip of Nightveil, a cleft so black it swallowed moonlight. Leif's knees locked. Mind hissed. Finish the rite, or Lord Caspian's wrath will raise your kin. Heart roared. I will not cast my father into shadow. Trembling, Leif set Eirik upon a boulder. For a moment, neither spoke. Only a lone cricket dared a brittle song. Father, Leif whispered, I cannot leave you. Whatever comes, I will carry you home. If the Lord sends fire, let it burn me first. Tears glazed Eirik's eyes. Then know this, my son. Love can make the fiercest terror small. Yet secrecy is our only armor. If the village believes me dead, we may yet survive. Resolution hardened in Leif's chest. He lifted his father once more and turned his back on the abyss. Descent proved crueler than ascent. Leif's calves burned, sweat froze upon his brow. Yet every few paces, Eirik snapped a twig from the underbrush and let it fall. Why, father? Leif asked, voice ragged. The old man's laughter was a wisp of warmth against the mountain chill. So that when you leave me, you will not lose your way in the dark. The words struck Leif like a sacred lance. Even now, he thinks of my return. Return from murder. His tears salted the wind. Never, he vowed to the night. Never will I tread that path without you. Behind them, a quiet trail of broken branches glimmered beneath pale moonlight. Tiny beacons of a father's love, pointing the way back from darkness. Under cover of midnight, Leif stole back onto Grayveil Hollow, his father's breathing a soft warmth against his neck. He darted shadow to shadow until he reached his own cottage. A ladder leant against the gable. In silence, he climbed and laid Eirik beneath the thatch among forgotten hay rotes and cracked milk pans. A single shutter admitted a blade of moonlight. Stay quiet, father, Leif murmured. Each evening I'll bring food and news. None come up here. Eirik pressed a blessing into his son's palm. Love is never wasted, boy. The mountain gods tally every kindness. So the days turned. At dawn, Leif worked the terraced barley. At dusk, he carried bread, goat milk, and pine nut tea to the loft. Father and son talked long into the star watch. Eirik spoke of drought years, of wolves that once walked the ridges, of the trick of planting rye between rows of flax to cheat the wind. Leif listened, astonished at the treasury hidden in a head grown silver. Strength breaks, lad, Eirik said more than once. But wick bends and springs again. On the seventh morning, drums thundered through the lanes. A herald in Torin Hall livery cried, Hear the decree of Lord Caspian. Every house must bring to the moot hall tomorrow a rope woven from ash. Fail, and the price shall be iron and fire. The villagers stared, bewildered. Ash? One cannot twist powder into cord. Yet the Lord's crossbow spoke louder than reason. Leif's heart sank like a stone in a well. He climbed to the loft and poured out the riddle. Eirik's eyes twinkled. Possible, though perilous. Twist a hemp rope tight, every finger's breadth a knot. Then bird it slow, so the fibers blacken yet hold their shape. Carry the ash cord on a bark tray. Breathe upon it never. Hope flared. Leif spent the night by the hearth. He knotted a stout cord, laid it across glowing embers, and coaxed it to char without breaking. At cockcrow, he possessed a rope of gray ash that still retained the memory of fiber. He laid it on an alder wood tray, covered it with a linen cloth, and walked to the moot hall while the village watched in open disbelief. Lord Caspian lounged on a pine-carved throne, arrogance etched into every line of his face. One by one, the peasants approached. Some carried wisps of soot, some empty hands, All were fined or flogged. Then Leif stepped forward, drew away the cloth, and revealed the impossible ash rope. A hush fell. Caspian leaned down, eyes glittering like frost on steel. "Who taught a plowboy to bind fire itself?" he demanded. Leif lifted his chin. "Necessity, my lord. A man may find wisdom when the wolf is at the door." Caspian laughed, a short, sharp bark. "Then let the wolf gnaw on lesser bones. You have saved your roof, clever crofter. But remember, ropes of ash are brittle, so are favors." The hall erupted in murmurs. Villagers glanced at Leif with new awe, unaware that beneath his thatch lay the true author of the miracle, an old man presumed dead, whose quiet counsel had just outwitted a lord. A week of quiet passed. Then the drums rolled again. In the moot hall, Lord Caspian rose, eyes glittering like spear points on frost. "Second trial," he declared. "By sunset tomorrow, each house must bring me a snail shell through which a thread has been passed. Fail, and the iron price will be exacted." The crowd staggered out, half laughing, half weeping. How coax a cord through a spiral of stone? Leif climbed to the loft, despair written across his brow. "Father, the Lord asks for the impossible, a threaded snail shell." Eirik's weathered face crinkled into a smile. "Impossible only for those who forget the small folk of the world. Sit, and I will show you the way of the ant." He took his son's calloused hand. "Catch a living snail shell, one still moist. Set it in sunlight so the creature peeps. Take a hair-fine thread, tie a grain of steamed rice to the end, and lay that grain at the shell mouth. Then fetch an ant. Hunger will drive her inside. She will haul the thread as she hunts the rice. Wait, she will emerge on the far side, thread in tow." Leif listened, wonder blooming like dawn on snow. "Father, you turn mountains into molehills." "Remember," Eirik said, "the smallest ally, used wisely, can pull down the mightiest gate." By dusk, Leif had the shell. By dawn, the ant had done her work. He carried the impossible relic on a velvet pad to the moot hall. Caspian turned the shell over and over. Sunlight glinted through the tiny tunnel, now laced with flaxen fiber. "Miracle upon miracle," he murmured. Suspicion flickered behind his eyes. "Tell me, crofter, whose wit guides your hand?" Leif's tongue froze. The hall held its breath. Days later, the horn summoned every soul once more. Caspian fixed Leif with a hawk's stare. "Young man, twice you have mocked impossibility. Before I set the third task, answer. Who is your unseen counselor?" Leif stepped forward, palms pressed together. "Grant me leave to speak truth, my lord." "Truth or torment? Your choice," Caspian replied. Leif's voice rang clear. "The wit is not mine, but my father's. He completed 60 winters. By law, I bore him toward Grayveil Gorge, yet my heart rebelled. I hid him beneath my thatch. Every feat praise was wrought by his counsel." A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Farmers glanced sidelong, as though a ghost stood among them. Caspian descended the dais, boots echoing on stone. "So the useless old man has twice delivered you all from my wrath," he said slowly. "Tell me, elder, what else do you see from your hidden perch?" From the rear doorway, supported by Leif's arm, Eirik entered, frail but unbowed. "I see a lord who tests his people with riddles while forgetting the truest resource of a realm, experience." Silence hung like drawn steel. Then Caspian laughed. Not the sharp bark of pride, but the long roll of recognition. "Henceforth, the cruel custom ends," he proclaimed. "Let no elder be cast into darkness. Instead, every winter season, a council of sages shall convene in this hall. Their wisdom the beacon that guides my rule." The crowd erupted, tears, cheers, the clash of tools upon flagstones in sudden joy. Caspian turned to Leif and Eirik. For wit that bound fire and bent ants to purpose, I grant you lands and a seat at that council. May your story remind us, a kingdom that discards its elders, discards its memory, and a realm without memory walks blind into ruin.